It's great to see the St. Kilda Film Festival is coming up very shortly, June 6th to the 16th, and it's the 40th anniversary. It's bigger and better than ever. And it's my great pleasure, as always, to be speaking to Richard Sowada, who is the St. Kilda Film Festival director. Welcome again to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks so much, Peter. It's always great to be on.
Great to talk to you. And boy, this is a big event this year. Tell me about the challenges in putting all this big process together.
Well, it is a bigger event. Like there are more sessions, more films, more venues, but it's really been a natural progression, I think, over the last few years. Like this, is my fifth year as director, and it's a funny thing because the first year was COVID. I started in 2019, and then my first festival was 2020. So COVID wrecked that. But we went online really quite quickly, and we got a national audience for the festival of about 44,000 people, which was great. Uh, and then the second year was like COVID interrupted. We got a few sessions in, and then had to go online, but we still got like about 34,000 people looking at the festival. So even in the COVID times, the festival was kind of extending its reach in many ways and thinking about its relationship with audiences in a different way, as we all had to. But I think we were particularly successful against many other film festivals in Australia and around the world. And then as we moved out of COVID, we really started to experiment with a few things in the live context that was different to the previous festivals. Not that there was anything wrong with the previous festivals at all. I stand on the shoulders of the previous directors who were really brilliant with the way that they ran the festival and the creative, structure of it. But we started pushing into doing other things, a lot of free screenings, a lot of connecting with families. And then over the next year and next couple of years after that, we started showing films in places like the Esplanade Hotel down in St. Kilda, beautiful on the foreshore and such, so mixing films and music. And last year we did quite a number of screenings in South Melbourne in various bars and, the South Melbourne Market and that sort of thing, and really tried taking films directly to audiences rather than expecting them to come to us necessarily, which is what cinemas do. We thought, you know what, let's go to them and go to where they live. And that really, really worked. And so this year embraces all those things that we've developed and experimented with over the last few years, free family screenings, 16mm screenings in bars in South Melbourne and the markets again, and the ESPY gigs and screenings at the Pride Centre, which always work really well at the Victorian Pride Centre, and elsewhere. So it is bigger. There's more films, but we also received more films in the call for entries as well. We received 100 more films than we did last year, and last year was really good. So it's like, okay, these things are there. The volume of the films are there. The quality is there. And the central venue we're using, the Alex Theatre, has got two theatres. They're live theatres, so we have to basically rig them out of cinemas. And it was when I first went in there and had a look, which is the Alex is on Fitzroy Street in St. Kilda. I thought, wow, there's two theatres here. Let's run two cinemas. Let's just really go for it. So that's why it's bigger, but it doesn't feel bigger necessarily in the logistic, because we've got it really down to a fine art. But there's certainly more in it, and I really structured the festival around a momentum. Just the movement would carry it through. So I know that's a long way to the answer of your question, and maybe I didn't even answer it, but it is a bigger event, but it's been a real pleasure to put together. The professional development day, the big picture, that's way bigger than what it ever was. But it's built not on shoehorning more stuff in because it's the 40th. It's just built on its own power, its own momentum that it's built over the last few years.
Well, congratulations on that because it demonstrates how important short films are, and St Kilda Film Festival in particular, of course, is Australia's longest running short film festival, and that is
Yes.
terrific to see
Yeah.
that event and that the city of Port Phillip supports it so well.
Oh yeah, look, it's arts, not so much with local council, but arts anyway is in a very fragile position
Mm.
funding wise. And in many instances, audience wise too. We have music festivals that are cancelling every second day that have been, centerpieces of the music industry for, a decade or more. And film festivals around the world are still having significant issues as a result of COVID and streaming and coming to grips with audiences in a different kind of a way and reaching them in a different kind of a way. And when that happens, people that fund them also get the jitters a little bit as well. It's like, what's going on? You need to restructure and that sort of thing. Is and quite a number of film festivals here in Australia and around the world are actually doing as we speak. But for us, I think with St Kilda, with the film festival, because of the high level of experimentation, not just from me, but from the previous directors, we're dealing with many new filmmakers who are thinking about things in a different way and that sort of thing. So you have to embrace that in the programming style, and you have to be adventurous, and you're kind of working directly with filmmakers and their families, and very people very close to their work, and so that gives the festival kind of a depth that many other festivals don't have in the closeness it has with its filmmakers or the filmmakers who are in the festival and the audiences as well. Um, so we've been very fortunate in being able to continue to um, produce an event that is financially viable, although it's heavily supported by the City of Port Phillip, but it's not in any kind of danger in slipping audiences or what's going on here, or you need to work the strategy better here or anything like that. It's really been a very organic event, I think, really reflective of the spirit of the filmmakers themselves. So I take my hat off to the City of Port Phillip for their support of the festival. But the festival also generates a lot for the local community, just in terms of business, which is one of the reasons why we're at the Alex Theatre on Fitzroy Street, is to bring people to the high streets. And so it does perform a really good balance of a cultural event against a economic event as well for the local community, for the local businesses and such, which we try and support wherever we can, which is why we're screening in bars and non-theatrical venues that are owned by people not related to the art or entertainment business at all. It's like letting people discover these places so it can generate future business, but also let people, perceive these places as, oh, I never thought of it like that. Uh, you know, that's a really interesting use of that space. So, it is that creative and economic development which is behind the festival from a City of Port Phillip perspective, and it really works. I think we really grab it and we put all the money straight back into the community.
Well, well done on all of that because that is absolutely terrific. And you've already mentioned this. The number of submissions you receive has grown,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the selection process and the types of films being submitted must be quite diverse.
Oh yeah, look, the entries start in September. We open the entries the first of September. It used to open much later. The entries were only open for like a couple of months, but so we opened the 1st of September and they closed at the end of January. We got pushing 800 entries this year, which was really great. I watched them all to get as much of a sense of what is going on in the Australian screen industry, because for people that don't know, the festival is primarily Australian short films. I watched them all to get the most comprehensive grasp of what the tone of the sector is every year, and it does change every year. The topics and themes, the creative themes that filmmakers work with change every year. So So I don't use a selection committee per se, but I do have alumni from previous years' filmmakers who do look at all the films as well. Like I divide each section up into alphabetical, like A to E, F to L, and that sort of thing, and put two alumni on each of those areas. Uh, I look at them all, then I look at what the selectors are saying as well, and it doesn't always marry. And often I will put films in that they've given a low rating to, but I feel that, you know what, I like this movie. So there is that interplay. But it is a lot of movies to watch. Not all of them are good, I don't mind saying. There's no point, flying a flag for a bad movie. So it can be a struggle, but and it is very, very time consuming when you think of 800 films at an average of 10 minutes of film. That's a lot of viewing. But it's incredibly rewarding. Like when the ones that come through that are thinking differently about short film and about just filmmaking in general, you can see straight away the filmmakers that actually watch movies. And I think it's a big problem in the screen industry generally, Peter, that I don't know how many filmmakers actually watch movies, like really watch them and watch a lot of them. And that's the way to educate yourself in filmmaking. You don't necessarily need to go to university or study or anything like that. You can learn by watching. The masters have made all the mistakes that you can ever possibly make, and all you need to do is look at them, and the successful filmmakers do. So, but as you're watching them, the patterns emerge for the year. The kind of thematics that emerge, and one of them this year, very early on, and now it's in the everyday conversation, was films about domestic violence and family abuse and such. That was straight away. It was like, wow, there are a lot of these movies. And again, not all of them are good, not all of them are in the program, but the point is that this was something that was very strong within the creative community, and now it's in the everyday language, everyday conversation, which is such an interesting thing for me to see how early these things run in the creative mind, and then the voices surface much later, or the conversation surfaces much later. So that was one. And I have to say that there was a significantly greater amount of First Nations films of a much higher quality than I've seen before. That was really good. And also with them, they were very spread across ways of telling First Nation stories, from narrative drama to experimental film to dance films to, animations to all kinds of things. And it was like, oh, wow, these are really have found a different way, a different voice, and a different kind of balance in the kind of stories that were told. They weren't like, there's always urgency in those voices and in those stories, but there was a different kind of confidence I felt in the films, and they weren't as urgent and much more poetic in many instances too this year than previous years, which was really great. So that was the thing too. And the queer stories, there's always a really good contingent of rainbow stories. And again, I think there's more confidence in those too. There's less struggle in understanding, you know, the sexuality and the gender. I don't know if I'm coming across, but there's less struggle in the stories and much more confidence in here I am, if that makes sense. So that
Yeah.
that was a really good thing to see too. So yeah, that's how it comes together.
Okay, really interesting to hear all that. And with the First Nations film, you've got a special event at the ESPY for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We've been doing that over the last couple of years, and that's sold out every time. It's a mix of live performance and film and talking. So this year, our First Nations Arts Officer, Fred Geisha, who I work very closely with on the First Nations components of the festival, he's got a program looking at protest through the lens of the moving image. So we've been working with the ABC Film and Radio Archive, presenting a really, really great satirical short news report called Barbecue Area. I don't know if you're aware of it, Peter, but it's
I
an
am.
absolute classic. Oh, it's an absolute ripper.
Yep.
And Bob Mazza's in it. Lisa
Yep.
Mazza,
Yep.
his daughter, will be there talking about it too. And there will be Richard Franklin's there. We're showing one of his films. And we're showing a short documentary about ASIO spying on First Nations people, when they were agitating for their rights. And so there's the conversation, there's music, and that's going to be a really great show. And it always has been. But we're doing a First Nations program and talk as well with the films that have been submitted to the film festival. We're doing that at the Alex, but also, the First Nations films will be peppered throughout the program too. They're not
Mm.
just contained in First Nations box. They're much more, integrated into the program, which is really great. So that was a very pleasing thing this year with the films that were coming through.
Yes, excellent stuff. I
Except
mean, sorry, keep
I was
going.
just going to say, it would be good to have more First Nations women's voices in the producing of the film, because although there are more films, there's not necessarily more gender diversity in that production. That would be a very good thing to see as well. And I think once that's hit, it's a whole other ball game. So
Yes.
sorry, I interrupted you, Peter.
No, no, I'm glad you made that point. That's a very important point to make. So that's great. And of course, there's all the usual packages or group or themes and ideas. But I notice you're teaming with dog milk.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. See, this is one of the other things, in experimenting with your audience and reaching new audiences and such. Dog Milk, for instance, for those who don't know, are a filmmaking collective here in Melbourne. They're kind of working in experimental forms, but also narrative form too, but in a new kind of a way. They usually screen their works, or their events are usually happening in bars and clubs and such, non-theatrical venues and found spaces, which again is really great. It's where audiences are. It's where that sensibility lives. And those spaces can also be very flexible too. They're not as cathedral-esque is not the right word, because cinemas aren't quite like that anymore, but they're not as constrained by the architecture, by the physical architecture. It's much freer. And people are very familiar with those places. There's a different kind of ritual in attending a bar than a cinema. And also often a different kind of cost element too. So, and I really like what they do. They work with installation. They work, in that expanded cinema type environment, which is outside of the traditional form. And expanded cinema is it's an experimental way of seeing films. But when I say experimental, it's been such a big part of cinema since the 30s. Since before then, actually, in showing movies that aren't consigned to a cinema, that are in a tent or in a town hall or in a bus, all those kind of things. So they're doing a screening of films that the Dog Milk Collective have produced themselves, and that will be screening in one of the cinemas at the Alex. But also there's a live performance which isn't on the website as yet because it's still being formed, of a Sydney collective, a Sydney duo of experimental filmmakers and performers who are coming down to do a show which moves through an audience. There's a rehearsal space at the Alex Theatre, and the audience will be standing, and the artists will be walking through the space with their projectors and potentially nude. So we're working with that right at the moment, which is always a fun kind of thing. But potentially not nude as well. But it's a work in progress. So, but for us, that's like really so important to connect with and collaborate with people working in different areas of the screen industry. And it's not so much to develop our audience, but it's also to develop theirs. Many people would be unaware of Dog Milk, and the work that they do is
Mm.
fantastic. And what I have to say as well is, with Dog Milk, it's not so much about representing Dog Milk and collaborating with Dog Milk. It's about highlighting this new movement of new kinds of cinema forms, which are happening right here in this town, amongst not just Dog Milk, but there's a number of other groups who are doing this kind of thing, and it's changing, in my view, although it's not changing the shape of the exhibition experience, it's pointing to a new one where the old one, as we know and love, is not connecting with audiences, in my opinion, in quite the same way that it was even prior to COVID. And it needs change, and these organizations are agents of change, which I have to reward through the film festival.
Excellent stuff. That's so much happening. And
Yeah.
I notice you've got a short to features theme where you've got Robert Connolly's early films and so on, Strikebound
Yeah.
again the early films. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad you like it. It's the idea. Well, the idea sprang from primarily from the notion, like, you in the film festival with films that come through, you do see a lot of short films that are obviously crafted to be a feature. You know, the filmmakers are testing their ideas, and taking it to market. And in actual fact, after last year's festival, there was a number of films. One of our judges was a film producer, and she was on the hunt for projects. And there was quite a number of films in the festival that went on for further discussions for feature work, and those discussions are ongoing. But the filmmakers themselves, many of them are like, what? How can I get from A to B? You know, how do I bridge that gap? And so I thought it would be really worthwhile to demonstrate that in the real world with filmmakers who are working to great success here and around the world, from their first short film to their first feature film. And Richard Lowenstein, for instance, local boy made good. He's a City of Port Phillip lad, has flown the flag very high for St Kilda from the very beginning. So his film Evictions, which actually screened at the St Kilda Film Festival when it was made, and Strikebound, his first feature, was a very acclaimed film, and based on the book from his own mother, I do believe.
Mm.
And he's color grading that as we speak, so he's kind of restoring it as we speak, which is really great. And Robert Connolly, he's a fantastic supporter of the festival as well. So his first film, which was made for the AFTRS, I think it was like a student film, and The Bank, his first film, and then Jane Campion, her film Peel and Sweetie, and which Peel is amazing. It was a student film at the AFTRS as well. Went on to win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, which is on at the moment. And her second film did exactly the same thing, and from AFTRS. And of course, there's Tony Ayres as well, with his first short, first feature. And gee, they're good, all of them. But Tony Ayres, particularly, and Jane Campion's as well, but they're all really good. It's really hard to separate one from another. Like Evictions, Richard Lowenstein's short film, is really, really good.
Yep.
But I think the idea really works, and I think newer filmmakers will go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. I can see the experimentation and the transition of that into something more, consolidated. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a yeah.
Excellent program. That's terrific. Now, notice you've got two guests, Ted Brunetti and Donald Petrie. Petrie is a TV producer, and it's the issue there is about directing actors.
Yeah. So that's Ted is going to be in person, and the other is going to be coming down the line. But one of the big things, we've done last year at the Big Picture, we did a number of acting workshops, doing audition tapes and such, because one of the big changes in the industry since was during COVID, when actors couldn't audition face to face. There was the auditions like a tape. You tape your audition. Now that's become pretty well a standard, an industry standard. And so performers doing mastering that audition tape is a difficult thing and a newish kind of thing. So that workshop that we did last year was very successful. Anyway, Ted approached me. I didn't know Ted from until a few months ago. He's a very, very experienced lecturer in performance and in producing. He's done a lot himself. He still works. He's came out of the Actors Workshop in New York. He's a very New York guy, in the way, he could be his own character on TV representing New York, and he's so great to listen to. But this workshop is really it's for actors, but it's really for producers and directors as well, to understand the process a little bit better and to pull the best performances they can out of actors that they maybe have at their fingertips. As a aspiring actor back in the day, which is where I kind of started, oh my Lord, I know how hard auditions can be. They're excruciating. And for both the director and the performer. So getting a better perspective on how to run them. So the way that they'll work is that there'll be a small amount of directors and producers. When I say small, probably 15 to 20. And there'll be about 4 actors or so, professional actors. And they will be in situ in an audition process, and Ted will run the workshop along in situ kind of type lines. So it's, the actors will have lines to run and lines to learn, scripts to run, and that sort of thing. So it's in the moment with Ted, very tightly wound character, and they'll be great. I can't wait to see them actually, because they'll be the real thing. So yeah, they're good. But it's very important to have those kind of bridging things for particularly newer directors and producers and performers as well. Yeah.
Again, excellent stuff. It's so much about filmmaking and the filmmaking process, which, of course, you've got your Filmmaker Development Day, as always, at the JMC Academy, which is a great event.
Yeah. Look, we have probably during the day, there's probably 70 to 90 speakers from all sectors of the screen industry. Again, there's a little bit about casting and acting, performing. There's color grading workshops. There's animation sessions about animation and making a living in animations. There's intimacy on, working with intimacy in producing a film. That's a very big thing now. There's intimacy coordinators working on almost every film. And, teaching producers and directors and performers how to work on set with, sensitive, physical and emotional pieces. What else have we got? We've got a working with 16mm workshop, which takes you from the A to Z of working with 16mm. They shoot and produce a film in one day, learn of the science of it, develop the film and the whole thing. And it's so great. They're all running around the whole venue with these beautiful Bolexes and lovely cameras. And I can't tell you, like I do a little bit of trading in old film equipment and projectors and cameras and such. I can't tell you the interest in analog film production right at the moment. Super 8, 16mm, box brownie cameras, young people buying these beautiful things and rediscovering this great old technology. So that's already sold out, that 16mm workshop. We've got the inimitable Sean Miller, local film lawyer, he does an intensive program. He does like 5 sessions back to back, 50 minutes of production, distribution, exhibition, legals, financing, and the whole thing. So it's a very comprehensive day. And again, like the festival overall, it really has grown a lot. We have quite a few people coming through the door. It's all free. So we try and make it as accessible as we can. This is what I was saying before, Peter, about putting the money back into the community.
Mm.
It's not for us. We're not trying to make money. Um, the best result for us is what we see in the films that come through the next 2 years, if we are able to open people's skills skills base, if we can open their mind, if we can introduce them to each other, and build a critical mass, which potentially was never there. So yeah,
Excellent.
it's a
Yeah.
good
No,
big
that's
part.
all fantastic. Very interactive and I
Yeah.
know my Zoom is running out of time. Opening night. Let's talk about that. Which
Oh yeah.
at the Astor, Brian Nathan Curvis will be there to host,
Yes.
and the website and everything. So yep, go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the opening night, it's always the hardest session to program, to curate, of any film festival. There are so many things to balance, but we're blessed with so many good movies. So the opening night, it is a real tasting plate of the festival overall. So I have, some experimental work in there. I have some animation. I have some really great comedy. I have some queer programs in there. One, the queer film I've got in there it's heartbreaking. Uh, but so it's not all fun and laughter and like party poppers and balloons.
Mm.
There is, some serious social comment in there too. Um, but I really do like to give audiences, like, I don't, it's not all fluff. I do like to put some kickers in there that really intrigue people. But I think this year we were also blessed by probably more comedy films than I've seen in the 5 years I've been doing the festival. So it does have a good bit of leaning toward comedy. The opening night is always a blast. Like,
Mm.
the Astor is such a beautiful venue,
Yep.
and one of the few like it in the world. I think it was a couple of years ago voted in the top 10 of cinemas in the world of its kind.
Mm.
And it's not surprising. It is a lovely space. And the after party will be there. The tickets are really cheap. Again, we try and keep the tickets cheap. I think it's $60, 50 or $60 for the film and the party. Everything's free. And if people want to have a look at all the films that are on during the program and the professional development day, the website is StKildaFilmFestival.com.au, I do believe. Peter, you might have that in front of you more than me.
You're right.
Um, yeah, so everything is there. So if people want to have a look, again, in keeping it accessible for everyone, tickets are well below what you would ordinarily pay at the movies, $16.50, I think, for a single ticket. Passes are on sale too. That's the best way to see the festival. So yeah, very, very pleased with it. We'd love to see your listeners down there and come and tap me on the shoulder and say hello, and I'll likely buy them a drink, or the other way around. But yeah, so venues across St Kilda and South Melbourne, but primarily at the lovely Alex Theatre on Fitzroy Street in downtown St Kilda.
Excellent news. St Kilda Film Festival, June 6th to the 16th, stkildafilmfestival.com.au. So much happening. And Richard, before I let you go, you know what I'm going to ask you to conclude. Have you seen anything of late that has impressed you?
Um, yeah, well, look, I know I'm very late to the party, but I saw Poor Things the other day. And wow, I like I I thought it was too long, but the visualization of it, it was just stunning, so great to look at, and the the conceptualization of everything, it was really, really great. Um, I'm a big admirer of Yorgos. We showed at a film festival in WA a number of years ago, Dogtooth. I think it
Ah,
was his first feature. And from then on, wow. And Killing of a Sacred Deer, that's just
mm.
like, that's a knockout. High concept, which is what the film festival itself is all about as well, St Kilda Film Festival. They get rewarded, those kind of films. But yeah, that was really something for me. I thought it was great.
Yes. And Yorgos Lanthimos has got his latest film, Kinds of Kindness, I think at the Cannes Film Festival right now.
Yeah, that's right. Screening during the Sydney Film Festival as well, no doubt. Well, it's opening before the Melbourne Film Festival, I think so. I think it won't be part of MIF if I'm right. I think it opens mid-July. But bang bang with him. So he's really a one of a kind filmmaker, and it's great to see those kind of high concept films breaking through and winning Oscars for God's sake.
Exactly right. Great
Thank you.
recommendation. And apart from that, we certainly recommend the St Kilda Film Festival, 40th anniversary, June 6th to the 16th. And we've been speaking to the director of the St Kilda Film Festival. Always great to talk to you, Richard Sowada. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
All the best. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.